All right, it looks like we have most of the people who have registered in the meeting, so we're going to get started. Thank you for attending the Missouri Citizens for the Arts Advocacy training. I am Emily Frankowski. I'm the Secretary of MCA as well as the Director of Connect to Culture in Joplin, Missouri. And like I said before, please keep yourself muted throughout the presentation until the end. If you have a question, we will be taking questions at the end. Feel free to drop those in the chat, or you could even ask them via your voice at the end or the raise hand function. And there will be a recording of this presentation afterwards, so check out our Facebook or YouTube channel to see those. And now I'm going to turn it over to Allison, who is our fearless president.
Welcome everyone to our training, which it's for our Missouri Arts Advocacy Week, which will be January 31st to February 4th. And MCA, Missouri Citizens for the Arts, we are a statewide, nonpartisan, grassroots organization, which we seek to secure stable financial support for the arts across Missouri and for its citizens. We were established in 1980 as a 501c4, and our membership comes from arts organizations, members, people who love arts, arts businesses, corporations, and we're governed by the board of directors. And we also have our legislative consultant, Kyna Iman, who does a great job, and we have a wonderful board which represents sectors from all over the state, different arts organizations, individual citizens who just love the arts. And I really want to thank the people who made the arts this week possible with their talent and their resources. And so thank you to them. And I'm going to turn it over to Kyna to explain what we'll be doing during Advocacy Week, what we'll be advocating for.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Great to see everybody. I really appreciate you guys joining the call this morning. Great timing. The governor gave his State of the State address yesterday. So I've got some good news on the legislative process, and things are moving right along here in Jefferson City at the Capitol. So Emily's gonna flip through these slides with me just to give you a little advocacy training. I'm sure all of you know how to communicate and educate, but sometimes people are a little hesitant to get involved in the political process. So one of my favorite sayings is, when people ask me why they should get involved in the legislative process, is because you have everything at stake and things can be changed by just one vote. And a lot of times that vote can make or break us. So the arts really wants to create a more friendly environment. I mean, who doesn't like the arts? We're outgoing people, we're entertainers by heart, right? And so we have a great product to sell, but I just really need your voices here in the Capitol, because I think a lot of people don't realize that the arts are an industry in our state and that we employ people. And so that's why I'm here today to kind of get your brain thinking on how you can be more active in the legislative process. I'm not going to bore you with the legislative, how a bill becomes law. I'm sure you guys all saw the cartoon, I'm a bill, I'm only a bill, on Capitol Hill. If you didn't, you can YouTube it and ask me later on questions on that. But we're just starting this legislative process. And like I said, the governor gave his State of the State address yesterday, which kind of kicks off the appropriation process, and bills will be introduced this week with his recommendations. So the Missouri Legislature is made up of 163 House members from every corner of the state. It is Republican controlled right now, and the Senate has 34 members. We were a little light this week because of COVID. 9 senators tested positive in the Senate, and 22 House members were out because of COVID as well. But we're still moving along and plugging along in the legislative process. So you question, very fancy, how you can shape this process. is through advocacy. And we're going to show you how through Missouri Citizens for the Arts. So a lot of people think advocacy, or what I call lobbying, is not a bad word. It's actually your First Amendment right. And I usually, if we were in a room together, I would ask you, how many of you know who your legislator is, your state representative or your state senator? They really want to hear from you. And if they're not hearing from you, guess what? They're hearing from people at like the Soybean Association or Farm Bureau or other associations that are asking for funding just like we are. But that's why I really need your help to get around to those 197 legislators and be a face in their district and stand up for the issues that affect the arts. All right. Oh, and as a 501c3, you can advocate. I know a lot of people say, oh, I'm a nonprofit, I'm banned from advocating. You are basically just educating legislators on what's going on in your district and how you're spending Missouri Arts Council grant money, if you get grant funding, or if you're advocating on behalf of the Missouri Fine Arts Academy, if you're a former student, you can advocate. Everybody has a voice. How do you effectively advocate? This is the key. I mean, no one wants somebody coming in their office, bossing them around, just being, chauvinistic or very pompous on what, like, give me this money, I deserve this money. So it's just like a sales call you would do in normal day-to-day business. You need to be informed of what you're asking for. I'm going to give you our ask later. Be polite, and then reference special legislation. Our budget is in House Bill 12, which is under the Lieutenant Governor's office. So you might want to make note of that right now. We also have funding for the Missouri Fine Arts Academy, and that's under elementary and secondary education's budget, and that's House Bill 2. So we'll get to that later. Make it personal. Talk about how these issues affect you, like how many audience members came to your performances. Did COVID affect you? Were you able to continue to pay people at your office? Were you able to continue to pay rent? So have some of those specifics ready to go before you contact your legislators, and have a specific ask. This is the biggest mistake that people make when they come to the legislature or when they talk to their legislators online. Because we are so used to talking about the arts, but everybody loves the arts, right? We think they do, but do you ever say, hey, if you could fund the arts at, X amount of dollars, then I could do this in my state, in my community. And would you be supportive of funding the Missouri Arts Council? And get their response. So you have to be a closer on that. And then follow up and remain in contact by writing a thank you letter. I'm still old fashioned. I know a lot of people would rather send emails. I think if you have a personal relationship with the legislator, you certainly can do that. But I think we get into how to contact your legislator here briefly. So we're going to jump right into what our ask is at Missouri Citizens for the Arts. As you know, we receive funding, or maybe you don't know, we're going to go over this real quick, from what's called the non-resident athlete and entertainers tax. And the Missouri Arts Council. And by state statute, this is funding that is paid just like you and I. It's an income tax. It's not a special tax. It's just an income tax that's paid by professional athletes and entertainers for when they play or perform in the state of Missouri. So when Kenny Chesney comes to Busch Stadium to do a concert, or Arrowhead, we now collect funding on that concert and what his fees are that he made at that concert. And it goes, same thing for people that play the Chiefs at Arrowhead that don't live in Missouri. So that money is earmarked through the Department of Revenue, and the Missouri Arts Council is supposed to get 60% of that. Last year, that, even with COVID and a lot of the concerts and games being canceled, that tax brought in $36 million to the state. So we have estimated that we would ask for 21 million on that. And so that's where that $21 million funding comes from. Last year, the legislature appropriated $4.8 million to the Missouri Arts Council. And then yesterday, the governor recommended an increase of $1,950,000 to max 4.8 million. So that's what we will be fighting for next session. We also have cultural partners there, as you can see, through the State Library Networking Fund, the Humanities Council Trust Fund, Public Broadcasting, and Historic Preservation. And the governor did recommend an increase, if you're interested in those budgets as well, of $325,000 each to each one of our cultural partners on top of the $800,000 that they got last year. So, Emily, and I think we're saving questions to the end. So I'm going to try to roll through these. So this year is, as you know, I'm sure there's a lot of federal stimulus funding coming down the pike. We were able to get $917,000 in max budget last fiscal year for some ARPA funds, but we're also requesting an additional 33 million in funds to help the arts. And we have like a sheet that we're happy to share with you on where we believe some of those funds could be spent. I will tell you, the governor did yesterday recommend 20 million for entertainment venues, art centers, and museums, which will be handed out through grant process. And he was very specific in his outline in the budget that these will be mainly matching grants. And so I'm not sure yet how they will be administered, if they will be administered through the Missouri Arts Council or through Department of Economic Development, through small business grants. But I thought that was very encouraging to see the 20 million there. And also he put another 13 million in for tourism marketing, which all of you are definitely eligible for through destination marketing funds. And then also he put in 50 million, and I'm not sure what this entails, but it's local tourism asset development, which I think the arts are very much an asset to our communities in bringing tourism to our communities. I don't care if you're a museum or a theater like Arrow Rock Lyceum Theater, or you are definitely a draw to the tourism industry in your community. So that's another 50 million that we may be able to tap into those funds as well. So I'm not going to get into arts education in the schools just because that is more for the State Board of Education, and we're really focusing on the legislature today. So, Emily. So on Tuesday, the Senate Economic Development Committee heard legislation on these two bills that Missouri Citizens for the Arts has added to our advocacy agenda. I don't know if you've heard of them or not. One would be for the Entertainment Industry Jobs Act. This is a new proposal that would add funding similar to like a tax credit. If you hire so many people or X amount of people in the entertainment industry in Missouri, that you would get some incentives or tax incentives back. And it's similar to how the film tax credit worked, and that expired in 2013. We're trying to continue that tax or reinstate that. So I wanted to give you a couple numbers. Entertainment Industry Jobs Act that was heard on Tuesday is Senate Bill 733. And if anybody's around Warrensburg, your state senator, Denny Hoskins, filed that. I think Denny even goes up into Chillicothe. And did I see someone from Chillicothe on the call? So we're really pushing hard for Senate Bill 733, and then Senate Bill 732 is the film. We're trying to call it Media Act. So because some of the legislators don't like the term tax credit. So just, letting you know that that's out there. And so hopefully those committees, the hearing went great. We had a lot of people come in and testify on some definitely missed opportunities that Missouri could be, having if we had these tax credits back in place. I mean, nobody wants to see Ozark filmed in Georgia, right? So, and a lot of other opportunities like that. This morning, the House Appropriations Committee for Education actually heard testimony from several students that attended the Missouri Scholars Academy and the Missouri Fine Arts Academy. And I know there's some people on the call today that submitted written testimony in support of these academies, and I really appreciate that. The committee was very supportive. The legislature last year funded $500,000. Actually, the House put in $250,000. The Senate put in the full amount, $750,000. We went to conference, and it was conferenced at $500,000. We are requesting the full amount again this year. Yesterday, the governor recommended $500,000, which means I'm going to have to find $250,000 to steal from somebody else in education budget. So we've got our work cut out for us there, but I'm really excited that at least we're not starting with a big goose egg like we did last year and zeroed out of the budget. So we're good. Capital improvement projects, those pop up from time to time around the state. We support those as well. So next one. So like I was saying earlier, you're going to have to do a little homework. If you don't know who your legislators are, you can go to the Secretary of State's website or the Missouri House website or the Missouri Senate website. I tend to like the Senate website because it will give you everybody that you live in their district. And there's just a little tab up in the corner that says Legislator Lookup. And that will click on that, and that'll give you about everything you need to know about your state rep or state senator, including their contact information. Look and see what committees they serve on, see what kind of, they have a little bio on them, do they go to a certain church? What community projects are they involved in? What kind of business do they like? And then that kind of helps me always find that hot button, I call it, with the legislator on how to reach out to them. And a lot of them now have Facebook pages or on Twitter, if you want to check that out. And a few of them have their own websites, especially in an election year. So just remember, you're the expert. I know a lot of the legislators will tell you that they are the experts, but you are actually the expert, and you know what's going on in your district. And our biggest goal here is just to get you guys to reach out and talk to these people. They want to hear what's going on. They want to know what the funding is going to in their district. Always like to tell people, they get budget bills that are just stacks on stacks. But if you have reached out to them, you've put a face with that number in that budget bill. So when they get to that debate, they're no longer just looking at a number on a page. They're actually seeing a program, or they're seeing a child's face, or someone that has experienced that arts activity. So if you don't know the answer, please don't make something up. Just have, contact me or tell them you'll get back with them, and definitely we'll get you the information you need. Okay, so back to how we make contact. Like I said, I really still think handwritten letters still have a place, or typed letter. You can hand deliver or, mail to their local address. A lot of people do prefer emails now, but if you're going to email, I suggest you put in the subject line, like, I'm a constituent in your district. You definitely don't want to just mass email 197 legislators, because that will just go right into their trash bin. But I always like to try to just put, hey, I met you at the grocery store, or remember me, I'm a voter in your district, something personal, so they won't just like gloss over it. And then follow up with a phone call. I mean, the Capitol phone number is very easy to access. 573-751-2000. And just tell them what legislator you want to talk to. And most likely your legislator will pick up the phone. You may get their legislative assistant, which is great too. Those people actually get stuff done for their bosses, but leave a phone call message. I mean, just leave a message with them. If you're able to come up on February 2nd for Advocacy Day, I'll be happy to help you set up face-to-face meetings. If not, we're also here to help you set up some Zoom or conference calls in your district. So just make sure that you get straight to the point. Don't feel you have to write a 10-page letter dissertation on how important the arts are. Just, dear Representative Black, please support arts funding in our community. Here's what I do with it. Sincerely, if you have any questions, give me a call and give them your information. So MCAs will be sending out information throughout the whole session on who to write at the right times. It doesn't do any good to be working over in the Senate when the budget's in the House. So we try to give you timely up to minute, information on who to write when. And then once you made that contact, stay in contact with them. Honestly, the biggest complaint I hear from legislators, and I know they're whining, they're like, nobody ever thanks me for anything that we do, blah, blah, blah. So whenever people do actually step up and write a thank you note, they're just like, they won't forget it. I mean, they frame them, they put them in their office, they get awards, which the arts are great about doing cool glass stuff, but just give credit where credit's due. It goes a mile. And yes, your efforts do make a tremendous difference. Like I said earlier, Missouri Citizens for the Arts really wants your support in helping us, speak up for the arts. And, what's the phrase? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Yeah, we need your advocacy. So just if you're not going to do it, who is? And so we really need you to step up. So that's our spiel on, oh yes, definitely vote, sorry. That's key to getting like-minded representatives and senators elected. And this is an election year, not a presidential, thank God, or a gubernatorial, but that's coming 2024. So yeah, sign up to vote. Make sure they know that you're a constituent. Okay, and I'm going to pass it back to Caitlin to talk about our adopted legislator, right? Or am I turning it over to Margaret? Sorry.
Why don't you turn it over to Margaret? Her slides are a couple after this.
Okay. So this is a lot of information, but we'll get it to you in the slides. So
Very good.
Margaret is a wonderful friend, and we're so excited that she has joined us to give you an update on what's going on at Mid-America Arts Alliance, because they have a lot of regional and federal funding opportunities that you'll want to hear all about. So Margaret, take it away.
Thanks, everyone. You can advance the slide. It's always good to be here and talk about the arts. We work closely with Missouri Citizens for the Arts, but also work in partnership with both the Missouri Arts Council and the National Endowment for the Arts. We're actually a regional arts organization that serves the arts from Nebraska to Texas and are headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri. So, we sit in the sweet spot between the federal and the state and try to keep the arts as healthy and vibrant throughout our region and beyond. So things at the national level, the NEA, many of us advocated to increase their budget to $201 million, which is a historic high point for the agency. It's a $33 million increase. And from what I understand, We're still waiting for that budget to get passed and hoping that it doesn't get passed through a continuing resolution where it would bounce back to the lower amount. But despite that, excellent work, all of us, right? Give yourself a pat on the back for making the ask on behalf of the National Endowment for the Arts so that they could get increased funding. It's important to note when we talk about the NEA, and I'll try to talk about it quickly, you know, creative workers, there's 5.1 million of us in the United States, and the creative economy sector in the US represents 4.3% of the gross domestic product and trades at a surplus. So there's a lot of economic power in that number. And honestly, funding it at a federal level of a $201 million is not enough. So, you know, I think that's okay to politely say, we deserve more money and we should get it. CARES Act obviously went out a long time ago, and $75 million was awarded to the National Endowment for the Arts. The American Rescue Plan awarded $135 million to the NEA, and the NEA last fall awarded $20 million from in ARPA funds to local arts agencies. The City of Columbia was awarded $150,000. And the NEA is about to do their next set within ARPA funds of organizational funding. I understand letters have gone out letting people know they have received funding as well as not received funding, but the public announcement we're just waiting for. So my next slide. Oh, I'm not seeing it, but there it is. Oh, that jumped ahead quite a bit. There we go. So Mid-America, thanks. Sorry, I threw these slides together and I've got to remember that I didn't remember the order. So Mid-America itself, since the pandemic has begun, we've awarded right around $6 million in pandemic funding. And it's come through the CARES Act. It's come through a fund we received from the Mellon Foundation and the Wingate Foundation of more than $10 million that we were divided up among the regionals, where we awarded funding to organizations, including 5 in Missouri. And just at the beginning of this month, we awarded the $1.1 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding, including these organizations in the state of Missouri. We capped it to organizations with 501c3s with budgets of $500,000 or less, because when we look at the arts ecosystem, we felt they were maybe not getting the share of funding necessary. Really, some of the funding at the federal level was maybe going to larger organizations, and we wanted to give smaller organizations, you know, a chance at funding. I will say, for the $101 million we awarded, we had an 211 organizations requested funding at nearly $6 million. So it illustrates there's still a need out there. People are still really working their way back from the pandemic. So next slide. So while the American Rescue Plan is a little bit in our rearview mirror, you know, keep in mind it was $1.9 trillion. That is a lot of money, for which only $135 million was awarded to the NEA. So I encourage everyone to look to other federal dollars that are out there and other federal agencies that are looking at economic recovery. You know, a lot of us are not-for-profits, but in our partner with tourism, but there's a lot of for-profit creative arts enterprises out there as well. And so whether it's education, workplace, training, you know, there's different pockets we can all tap into. Next slide. So I wanted to send you to a resource, the National Conference of State Legislators, ncsl.org. They have a searchable database. I think you have to search on ARP funding to get the database, but they have a whole list, and I've just called out a few when you hit the tab Arts and Culture and Tourism, that illustrate dollars that some of those states have set aside that the arts can tap into, or have directly been allocated to one venue. Like, for example, I just looked at what Illinois was doing, and they set aside $300,000 in their ARPA money for the Dunham Museum at East St. Louis. So some are doing kind of larger, broader grants where people will apply, and others are just awarding it directly. Next slide. I'm bringing up the Shuttered Venue Operators Grants just because it's they're winding down those grants, but it was $16.25 billion that Congress set aside for those within the performing arts industry, of which 227 million or more than that went to organizations in the state. Now they're winding it down, but you'll notice they've spent 14 billion of the 16.2. And so right now at the federal level, people are looking to ask for longer expenditure dates. So for those of you that did get grants from Shuttered Venue Operator grants, can you apply more dollars to get more dollars back from that? But they're also really trying to fight returning money to the general treasury. So they're either trying to get extensions or looking at rolling over any leftover dollars into the next relief package or any next relief package. Next slide. So, at the federal level and on the regional level, we're really looking at ways that the arts are part of the conversation when these dollars are spent or allocated within the federal government, within agencies that serve different parts. I should mention, and others might mention, this week if many of us, I hope all of us, were on the call or on the watch the video of testimony given to the House of Representatives Small Business Committee. It was the first time creative workers were ever asked to submit testimony to the Small Business Committee. So it's a big feat for colleagues who fought for that. And it included Missourians. So Rhiann Presley from Presley's Country Jubilee was one of 4 to testify to the Small Business Committee about small businesses and how they're faring in this pandemic and post-pandemic environment. And the ranking member of that committee is Blaine Luetkemeyer. So if you live in his district, please send a note and thank him for his questions. You can go back and ask, or watch, the questions he asked, so you can even follow up with information about what's going on in your community related to small businesses. And then at this time, there's 7 different bills that have been introduced to Congress that tap into the creative workforce. Some of which I noted there: the SARA Act, the Creative Economy Revitalization Act, the CREATE Act, the PLACE Act, and there's 4 more. And I will share the document I just got from Americans for the Arts that nicely breaks down each bill so that you can start recognizing their names. So when you read about it online or see an email come through, you can see where you can maybe advocate on behalf of those federal dollars and bills. Next slide. And then upcoming deadlines. There's always upcoming deadlines for funding, right? And so I wanted to just mention a few or include a few in this presentation. The NEA has a number. So while we're all talking about pandemic dollars, or in so many ways, the pandemic dollars, there's day in, day out activities that we all do. So the NEA has quite a few coming up. Mid-America, where we have our open applications for our artistic innovation grants that fund new works of art up to $15,000 for both individual artists and for organizations. And we also have our open grant cycle for regional touring grant dollars. where if you want to bring a performer from any one of our other states other than Missouri, we will help pay 50% of their artist fee up to $5,000. And know that also if you're a Missouri performing artist, we help, pay a venue to bring you to their community as well. So stay in touch. The next slide just includes my email, which is margaret@maaa.org. Sign up for our emails, and thank you for all you do for the state of Missouri, because it helps us in the work that we do. So I'll hand it over and I'll stick around for questions.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. I'm going to turn it back over to Caitlin, who's going to walk us through the Adopt a Legislator information. But Margaret, that is fabulous information from the federal level, and we really hope that people will take advantage of those programs, get some more funding. Missouri, thank you. Right, Caitlin?
Yeah, so I am Caitlin Lamberson, and I am an administrator with MCA. I wanted to go over a couple resources that we have for you to access. The first is our Adopt a Legislator program, and it is a sign-up genius. So if you're familiar with that or not, it's really easy to use. You can simply go in, and it's sectioned by region. So you go to your region, you can see all of the legislators there. You just check which one you would like to adopt. And you sign up, put in your name and email, and then you're good to go. And even if, the district or your legislator specifically is taken, please be brave and just sign up for a different regional legislator. We really need everyone to be covered. So, be brave in that way and be willing to reach out to maybe a regional rep too. This is going to be really key in making sure all regions of the state get notices about arts advocacy or different action alerts. So we really want to get every single slot filled in that. The other resource that we have, which you were emailed a couple of times over the past couple of weeks, was our Arts Advocacy Toolkit for 2022. This just includes our agenda and one-pagers and different tips to, help make Arts Advocacy Week a success. And if you didn't get that or you're not on our email list, feel free to sign up on our website, moforarts.org, and then you will receive all the future ones that we send out, and we will be sending out that toolkit again. The one other thing that I wanted to mention is the postcards that we will have for you at Arts Advocacy Day. So we will have those in the Capitol with us on February 2nd. And so you can pick those up. They are postage paid. You can write a quick note to your legislator and mail it as a follow-up. It'll be a great tool for that. We will also be dispersing those to regional arts organizations. So if you can't make it up to the Capitol on the 2nd, you can still find it at a regional location later in the session. Next, I wanted to give a big thank you to all of our members. So we are an organization that relies on annual member dues for both organizations and individuals. We have so many great organizations that have decided to become members from all areas of the state, but we could always use some more. So I'll give a few moments to kind of check over our members, and we're so thankful for you guys. And we can go to the next slide. And if you did notice that your membership was not put on here or in our toolkit, feel free to send an email in and we can get that corrected. And if your organization was not listed on there, we need you to join us. We'd love to have you as a member as well. And so you can easily do that on our website. There's a mail-in form option or a online PayPal option as well. Yes, and like I mentioned before, we do have individual members who also support us and that we're grateful to have. Before we start our Q&A, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. And yeah, if you've submitted your questions, Emily will take it over now, or feel free to raise your hand and ask it live as well.
All right, it looks like we have quite a few of interested folk in the chat, so I'm going to start at the very top. Okay, first one I see here is, what did the governor say yesterday with regard to allocation to the arts of federal COVID relief funds?
So that was the $20 million that I mentioned that he put in under the tourism tab for the entertainment venues, art centers, and museums. If you guys remember, we worked really hard back in September to get a list of what our ask would be or what the needs were. And you guys were really great to reach out to us and fill out that spreadsheet. We came up with like $33 million, I think, in our request. And so that's what we had asked the governor for from the American Rescue Plan Act. There are like more buckets than just the entertainment venues and art centers and museum. That's probably the one most closely related to you. But like I said, there's tourism dollars, there's small business workforce development dollars, and there will probably be more funding available through arts education if you're doing arts education components as well. And then state parks also got quite a bit of a bump. I don't know if some of our arts community projects are in conjunction with their local parks or state parks. So there could be some funding through that as well. Does that answer the question? As best as we know. But just so you know, these are just the governor recommendations. The House will then introduce a bill and then the Senate will go with that. So we're just starting this advocacy process or through the legislature.
Quick question. You mentioned the governor recommended an additional $1,900,000 over the $4,200,000 from last year. Now that's not ARP.
Right,
money.
right, Mark.
That's A&E tax money. Is that right?
Yes. So very good question. There's actually two separate budgets that the legislature is running this year. One's the annual appropriation, and that's, you're exactly right, the 4.8 million plus the 1.95. And so our request to the legislature, if you wanted to just go along with what the governor recommended, would be for 6.75 million for fiscal year 23. And then there's the American Recovery Plan budget that's going to be a separate supplemental budget, we call it. And that's where this 20 million and these other projects will be listed. Good question.
All right.
And that's why we've broken it out on our advocacy agenda. It's in two separate sections. Okay.
I think the next question goes to Evie, and she's in the flesh, not through chat.
Thank you.
Okay.
Kyna, you mentioned, speaking of that, these are just the governor's recommendations. Could you very briefly give us some key dates that we should be looking for as that process, the budget process, works in both chambers? And then Margaret, if you're still on, if I recollect correctly, we have until February 3rd to still be able to submit written testimony to the House's Small Business Committee on the creative economy bills. Is that correct? Is Margaret off?
I'm here. Yes, that is correct. That is correct. And if you want the person's name, it is Lauren Finks. So lauren.finks@mail.house.gov. She is collecting testimonies.
Thank you.
The KS or X?
KS, Finks, F-I-N-K-S.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll
yes,
put it
Evie.
in the chat.
Okay, good. So we don't just pick the sunniest, best time of the year to come to the Capitol, being February 1st as our advocacy day, because as you guys know, every year it snows or sleets on those dates. But we picked that date because it kicks off the appropriation hearing process in the House. And I think Michael's on, Donovan, he is presenting to the House Appropriation Committee sometime that first week or February 7th, I think you told me, Michael. And like I said,
It's on the
today,
7th.
which day is it?
The 7th.
The
It's
7th,
Wednesday.
okay. And like I said, today was elementary and secondary education presented their budget and the appropriation process. So yes, the appropriation process hearings are just beginning. And so they will take under advisement what the governor recommended and start drafting their budget kind of around those numbers. So it's really key that the governor gives you a good recommendation. If not, then you have to go, like I said, find money from other budget buckets to put into your bucket.
And then the other point is to adopt a legislator. So you're working with them, not just the first week in February, but throughout the session.
Throughout the entire
Right.
session.
And Caitlin, I've got one very banal question for those of us who are on the line and are planning, unless something happens to be there in person on the 2nd. You'll have materials for us. We can bring materials we want about our own area, our own agencies, but you'll have packets of with the MCA agenda and the materials for distribution to the legislators, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So we have a wonderful legislative card that kind of outlines what we're asking for. We'll also include our agenda as well. And then hopefully we'll have grant listings as well. So that's something we use usually every year. It kind of goes over the grant listings in each district. And it's really important to just show the legislators what they have going on directly in their district. And so hopefully have those updated for this year. If not, the last year's are still available on our Adopt a Legislator site as well. And so those can be pulled to share again too.
Okay, I have a couple inquiries about the slides and if they will be available afterwards for use.
Yes, we can get those sent out as well, along with the links to the Adopt a Legislator and our advocacy toolkit.
Okay,
And
great.
we would encourage you to take this PowerPoint and show it at your board meeting for your board members or your membership. There's nothing proprietary against it, with it. So please share it. That's what it's here for.
I have one that says, what are the House bill numbers for the Missouri Fine Arts Academy and the capital improvements projects? Also, have hearings already been done for SB 733 and SB 732?
Yes. So House Bill 2 is the appropriation bill number for the Missouri Fine Arts Academy. And House Bill 12 will be the bill number for the budget bill number for the Missouri Arts Council's budget. And yes, there were hearings on Tuesday for both Senator Hoskins' bill 732 and 733. But there are also House bills, which I can put that in the chat too. House Bill 2106, introduced by Curtis Gregory, is the film tax credit. And House Bill 2038 is the Entertainment Industry Jobs Act. So, and it's not too late to present. So the Senate this year, it's so messed up because of COVID. The House is taking written testimony online. If you'd like to fill out a witness form, you can submit testimony online, which is what Brandon and a lot of people did for the Fine Arts Academy. Thank you, Brandon. But the Senate is not taking testimony online. They are only taking testimony in person at the Capitol. However, you can send your testimony to that committee chair to be distributed or to members of the committee directly online. Does that help?
I think so. I think that we have answered all of the questions in the chat. So if anyone has a in-person voice chat they'd like to, ask a question, please. Oh, I see Mark has his hand up.
Kyna, if we come in person on the 2nd of February, is there a place where we should meet with you or with each other at
That's
a
a good
time?
point. Caitlin, I know I've got some tables reserved up on the 3rd floor, Mark, in the rotunda, but did we set a time to kick that off?
We will have that available starting at 8 a.m. So you can come in and just stop by. It's going to be more free flowing. So feel free to just come in for meetings that you have scheduled, and you can pick up those packets from us, and we'll be available most of the day there monitoring it.
Thank you.
Okay, Diane.
Yeah, and Mark, you've
Oh,
got my number. Just text me when you get in the Capitol. I'll find you or find me. We'll be circulating up on that 3rd floor between the 2 chambers, probably around 10. 8 o'clock, almost everybody's in the basement at hearings. So, and the cafeteria is down there. So most likely I'll be in the cafeteria between the hearing rooms. So just look for us. Diane, you got a question? Good to see you.
I was wondering, thank you, you too. Thank you for doing this. I was wondering if you are going to send us a direct link to the site where we can do the written testimonies online. A bunch of us did that last week in regard to the bills, House bills that were presented around critical race theory, and it made it really easy to do those written testimonies. Can you do that?
Yep, we can send you the link for the House hearings. Sure. Yeah. Like I said, the Senate's not taking, but what I did for those bills the other day, we sent out the notice, which has the committee. You can click on the committee name and it will give you everybody on that committee if you want to write them directly.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yeah, good point. I will send those links.
Okay, Sarah. You got to take off mute too. I think you're muted.
There we go. Our organization is very involved in EDI, education, or equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we're offering opportunities to help artists get into management positions with special programs. Is this something that would interest our legislators or work against us to talk about this?
No, actually that question came up to Dr. Moon Choi this morning at the university, what he was doing as far as equity and planning. That's a great question, Sarah. I think certain legislators would be very, interested in learning more about that. And so maybe just gauging which legislator you're talking to about it instead of just carte blanche sending it out to everybody without kind of gauging what their reactions are. I don't know, that's a tough line because it is definitely a hot topic to discuss, but you're right, there are certain legislators that could be offended by it or just, given the political conscience of some people. So where do you live, Sarah? What district are you in?
I live in Parkway School District in De Pere, but my organization's in Webster.
Yeah, so I think your state rep in Webster, Sarah Unsicker, would be very excited to see about that. And probably if you're in Schmed Dogan's district out there in Baldwin area, but if you're in Senator Koenig's, I wouldn't send it to him.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, does anyone else?
Just, I think Emily, you did this. She's put the bill numbers and repeated, I think, Margaret's stuff on Lauren Finks in the chat if people want to grab that before we get off. Thank you, Emily. I was going to ask about that.
Before we jump off, Michael, Donovan, I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there anything you'd like to add from the Arts Council's office? Thanks for joining us today, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And that's really all I have to say is I'm going to thank you for all the work that's got us to our historic increase potentially in a decade. This would be huge if we can retain this, and it's going to take every one of us to make that happen. And I'm thankful that we have a strong MCA that's working on behalf of this.
Well, thank you keep up the good work. I know you're still low on employees, right, at the council. So a lot of appreciation goes out to all the ones that are helping us put together Arts Day and getting us that list of grantees and stuff. That's so helpful. So keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
All right, Emily, I'm tossing it back to you.
All right, I think that we've answered all the questions. So just a reminder that this recording will be up on YouTube as well as Facebook, I believe, on Missouri Citizens for the Arts. All of those materials that we've talked about a few times now will be sent out to you. So don't worry about that. You'll have everything that you need to advocate for the arts in Missouri. And we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.